Welcome back to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Mike Morrison. And today we're going to be talking about trail accessibility. We've heard before that the Milford Upper Charles Trail is a trail for all seasons. Well, equally as important, it's a trail for all users too. And to help me talk about this subject today, I have here in studio with me is Mike Nicholson, the chairman of the Milford Commission on Disability. Mike, thanks for being here today.
Mike, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So for those not familiar with the commission, can you tell us a little bit about the commission, what it's intended to do, what the charter is, and so on?
Yeah, the concerns with accessibility started as early as 1968 when Massachusetts set up Architectural Access Board.
Okay.
And then in 81, they set up the Office on Disability. And then in 1985, we finally set up the Milford Commission on Disability.
Okay.
And then in 1990, the Americans with Disability Act came into effect. And then at that time, there were such things as transition plans for the towns and ADA coordinators. But from 1985 on, the Commission on Disability did become active in the town of Milford. Early on, the early members were really stressing compliance with these new laws because there were a lot of people who resisted change where things have to become accessible. As time has come along, we've evolved to where we are much more cooperative and work with different departments and different people throughout the town of Milford to encourage change on a cooperative basis rather than being
confrontational.
Yes, confrontational.
So it is a town body from the Board of Selectmen, I believe?
Yes, we are under the Board of Selectmen. We have 9 members. We were created by town meeting bylaw in 1985 and we have a set of the bylaws and the rules to go by.
That's great. That's great. Can you tell me of any sort of successful interventions by the commission? And by intervention, I don't mean, you mentioned it's more cooperative versus confrontational, so maybe that word is a bit too confrontational there, but any times when the commission offered some helpful advice for accessibility?
Well, we do offer a lot of advice. We are a set of eyes and ears for the town. We are not an enforcement agency.
Okay.
We work with the agencies that do enforce. For example, the building commissioner. We advise him many times where we see things such as missing accessible parking signs, changes in things that were designed and approved by site plan is supposed to be accessible and have fallen out of accessibility. The commission is also on distribution for site plan review prior to the planning board approving site plans, and our observations which we make in respect for ADA and AAB are taken pretty seriously by the planning board before they do approve plans.
And these are site plans for new construction, new buildings going on?
And alterations as well.
And alterations, like significant alterations to a building. Okay. So was the Commission on Disability involved in the early design for the trail? Because the trail, as we heard in the previous episodes, actually started over a decade ago.
Correct.
Well, more than that, actually, but
we weren't directly involved. Reno and people he worked with, Reno Deluzio, did an excellent job. We were, of course, on the sidelines. If we were needed, we were there. But he did do the design work with the architects and designers, the civil engineers, with the ADA in full consideration. So the basic trail itself was designed to be fully compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Right, and that means basically smooth connections with the sidewalk or a parking lot.
Yes.
And relatively level path, across slopes, so it's not tilted up or one side or the other, and easy for someone to walk on, so it has like a hard surface too. So
right, and very, very specific limits on slope and grade.
Okay, so you mentioned the ADA, that's the Americans with Disabilities Act. And,
right.
And briefly, are there any sort of like provisions or guidelines for multi-use trails in the Act? Well,
the rules under ADA for a public way, whether it be sidewalk or along a highway, they apply to any public way. So it was it was relatively easy, I believe, for them to take from the ADA and apply them to the basic trail.
Okay.
Now, looking for best practices in a lot of the work that we've been doing to offer improvements on amenities for the trail,
Okay.
the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration has some excellent materials on trail and sidewalk construction best practices,
Sure.
and several of their chapters focus on trail design.
Okay.
And really, I've referred to that many times in making suggestions and recommendations for safety improvements along the trail.
Excellent, excellent. And so the trail itself was designed and built with ADA compliance in mind, so it's not really not much to do in terms of accessibility, but your commission became involved more as amenities, as you call them,
Right.
came online?
Yes, whether they be kiosks or benches,
Right.
things that are along the trail,
Right.
many of them which are donated and were
True.
brought into existence after the ADA compliant trail was built.
Right.
And that is when it started becoming to our attention that some people who would use the trail with disabilities were not able to utilize these amenities.
Sure, sure. And are there, just briefly, if you could list some of the issues that you've seen, we can discuss them in depth, but any issues that your commission has identified with these amenities?
Well, the first one that we really looked at was the
Sure.
granite benches, which are donated by
There are a lot of them,
very good people.
Yeah, very
And
good
while
people.
we take no issue with the granite benches,
just to be clear, yeah.
they were not really accessible to various people with certain disabilities.
Yep,
We did do some exploration and found out there was really no reference for an accessible bench. So in our research, what we did find was one like we show here, in which fact we have
Okay.
required 4 of them that are right now waiting to be assembled here in town. But with a bench like this, some of the important criteria is that it has a back to it for leaning back,
yeah,
back
back
rest.
support, yeah.
and it has armrests for sitting as well as rising easily.
Right.
And we had it designed so that this armrest is over here for that purpose, but also so that we have a slide-on area for persons who want to
Right.
transfer from a wheelchair over.
So this side has
it's-
nothing like that, no obstructions.
It's open on purpose.
Right, so you can slide easily onto it.
That's right.
Excellent.
And for starters, and to test the concept out, we've acquired 4 of them. They're fairly vandal-proof, vandal-resistant.
We hope, yeah.
And we have 2 of them planned for existing trail and 2 for phase 3, which is yet to be built.
Excellent, excellent. And I think we have a map of the new bench locations we can bring up on screen. And if you could describe them, they're, if I recall, they're going to be on the Senior Center spur?
Yes.
Truck turnaround?
On the Senior Center spur, there's a wide spot that is paved now
Okay.
and utilized for maintenance vehicle turnaround.
Sure.
And we want to place 2 of them at the edges of that so that a person coming from the Senior Center area can walk up that area and then be seated in comfort there, as well as people
Yeah.
coming down from Main Street.
Okay.
The second 2 benches, the commission were involved directly in the design phase, and as a result had 2 rest areas, paved rest areas designed into the trail at the highest point,
Okay.
and one on each
That's
side with enough width to where the bench will be there, as well as room for a wheelchair to be beside it.
Okay.
So that we have the 2 benches ready for those, and as soon as the pavement goes in, then they can look at installing those. I believe
Okay.
Mike Bresciani's Park Department will be installing those for us.
Okay. Okay. And
The other issue with the granite benches was that many of them are away from the pavement.
approximately 2 feet.
Yes, but if a person, not in a wheelchair, but yet blind or having a
Right.
sight disability, is walking along and they're caning the edge of the pavement and they want to sit down,
Right.
if
need to
there
take a
is
rest.
no pavement over to the bench, they walk right past the bench. They don't even know that they passed one up.
Their only link to the world, because they're not sighted, is really the cane that they
That's
use
right.
to sound off
That's right.
the pavement. If this,
And many times they will be working with a person who teaches them a route to travel,
Okay.
so that when they repeat that route, they know what to look for.
Sure.
And if there is a pavement over to a granite bench, they'll detect it. They know I'm coming up to something where I should be a bench here.
So
They'll detect it.
they
Without
go
the
along, you
pavement?
can hear, they can hear the difference between like dirt versus gravel.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe there's no, for the granite benches, most of them don't have a paved surface there, so it's rough to wheel over to if you're in a wheelchair, or
Yes.
even someone who has physical disabilities in other forms might be tough.
Yes,
Right.
if you're on the trail walking with someone with a wheelchair, and both of you want to stop, well, now
Yeah.
you have the person walking who can go over and sit on a granite bench, but the person in the wheelchair cannot easily get off the trail to come over and join you by the bench even.
Right.
So it would be nice and I think it's in the trails plans, to add pavement to the granite benches, and hopefully also some width beside the bench, so
Right.
a person in a wheelchair can join you there by the bench.
Right, so it's really just enhancing what's already been donated, because
Yes.
it is a great benefit to have a place, many places actually, to sit down along
Absolutely.
the trail.
And they're quite
It's just-
vandal resistant, and
Yeah.
what we
yeah.
want to do is add to those, so that as time goes by, we can add more
Right.
of the accessible benches where they can be of
Sure.
use to people who need them.
So make it available to a lot more people.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe you also mentioned that there were some issues with the kiosks that are along the trail, or at least some of them.
Yes, using the kiosk at the Louisa Lake parking area as an example.
Sure.
In a case like this, the kiosk is a long way from a paved area.
Right. You can see in this picture, you can see the trail in the background.
Yes,
and
and to the foreground here is
Yeah.
the parking lot.
Yep.
Now, of course, if you have a little bit of moisture on the day and a person is on the wheelchair, and it rained earlier in the day, they want to get over to the kiosk in their wheelchair, it's not going to happen.
Right.
In a case like this is a newer one that we worked with a scout who was working on this as a project, and initially he was going to place this one further in another location on the trail, a little bit away from the trail. Demetri Edwards, one of our commission members, worked with him, and they agreed on placing it right at the trail, so the person in a wheelchair can wheel right up to it and then can read it easily.
Okay.
And of course, as far as accessibility at a kiosk, you want to have important information down lower to where a person in a wheelchair can read
Because
it.
they can't stand up. It's hard to crane
Right.
your neck up for long
Right.
periods.
Large print.
Yep.
And eventually even, it'd be nice if we could have some of the information in Braille
Excellent.
down the road.
Excellent.
But those
Right.
are the kinds of things we'd want to do to keep improving the kiosks.
Yeah.
But the main thing is getting them by the pavement. The one at Louisa Lake that we were speaking of earlier,
Yep.
there are plans to expand the parking area at the lake, and we will have already had agreement that there will be additional accessible parking spaces along with additional regular spaces, and there will be pavement between the paved area and the kiosk. Now, whether they move the kiosk in closer or pave out to it,
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Yeah.
yeah, one way or the other,
Whether
we've
we're gonna
already
get there.
reached agreement
Yeah.
that when the work is done, then there will be pavement to the kiosk.
Excellent, excellent. And I believe, I don't have pictures of the other kiosk, but there was one further up north by Route 85, the Hopkinton line, and a few others along the trail. Any issues with those that you know of?
I'm not sure on every one of them, but I believe
Okay.
those are fairly close to the trail, enough to
Okay.
where it would be very easy to add a little bit of pavement right along the side of the trail, just to come up
Sure.
to the edge of the kiosk.
So just basically the whole idea is to make it easy to roll up to
Yeah.
and easy to find the information on it.
That's
Excellent, excellent. And you also mentioned that they're going to be designing some new trailhead signs for the Phase 3 trail, which is be like a
Right.
pilot phase for it.
Right now, there are no trailhead signs anywhere on the Milford Trail.
Yep.
People who have disabilities, whether they're in a wheelchair or walking, really need to know what they're encountering. When they come to the parking lot, they go to the trailhead.
Right.
They say, now, what am I, if I go 100 feet, what am I going to encounter? Because I can only see so far down the trail.
Right. You don't want to get halfway down there and then find there's what becomes like a rocky trail with tree
Yeah.
roots and everything.
And nowhere to
boy.
rest, even.
So you gotta come on back.
There are a
And
number of
yeah.
sign designs out there, and we shared some of these with town planning and town engineer Vonnie Reese, and we've settled in on this particular one, and this, of course, is a draft version of the sign, as it'll be modified for specific Milford situations.
We'll update the
and
name
even
and
still,
so on. Yeah.
For specific sections of the trail, because we do need to tell you the surface type, the width, cross slope, and grade,
Right.
so that if I come to the trailhead, I can see this sign, I feel a lot more confident about going on up the trail.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
we want to put the first signs with the new Phase 3 trail. That's what these specific ones are being designed for.
Okay.
And that being the precedent setter, then we'll want to expand to the other parts of the trail, you know, the Phase 1, Phase 2, so that we have that covered also. You and I spoke the other day briefly about the trailhead at the Holliston line.
Yes, indeed.
And the fact that there is still a trail there going into Holliston, although it's much more, it's rougher.
Rougher. It's not porous pavement or anything like that. It's, as I recall, recycled asphalt going down to stone dust, crushed stone surface. So it's fairly compact. It's definitely bikeable on even a road bike, but smaller wheels like on a skateboard or a wheelchair certainly might have a little more difficulty.
So that's a good example of where you might want to really, the sign becomes extremely important, because a person walking, not necessarily in a wheelchair, but walking with a disability, needs to stop and read that trailhead sign at that point for going into Holliston. And he'll know that maybe I don't want to try this.
Maybe it's, maybe we should turn back. There is that turnaround there before you get over into the next section.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, there were some trail deficiencies I believe your commission had identified in different parts.
On. There was one especially at the upper end of Louisa Lake.
Okay.
There was a turnout, and if a person had a sight disability or blind and they were using a cane, and they were walking, for example, down from 85 down towards Louisa Lake, and they're caning to the right side of the pavement would lead them right around towards the lake, with them not realizing that they were going to step right off the pavement with about a 7 or 8 inch drop off into dirt.
Into dirt, and then the lake beyond that,
That's
which
right.
is not exactly.
I mean, you would just start rolling, really, because it would catch you totally by surprise. The cane would not have picked it up.
Right.
We met with the Friends of the Trail, described the problem with them, to them, and it wasn't too long after that when one of the scouts had proposed a block for that section, and he did install that. Now it will be picked up by a cane. We'd still like to see some more foliage put in around that as a supplemental stop for that area, but at least there is a high visibility, substantial block there now all the way across that will stop a person from blindly walking right off.
Basically like a roughly 5-inch block that will be picked up by a cane, so they hit it, oh, wait a minute, that's, that's the end of the trail there, I can't go beyond that.
And it's high contrast color too.
Exactly, so for limited visibility, that's excellent.
Yes.
That's great news. So are there any other issues or improvements that the commission has identified? We spoke briefly about the a new rest area over by the Route 109 trailhead.
This is one that has been kicked around in town for a while in discussions. An accessible platform at the edge of Louisa Lake, near the dam.
Yep.
It's not just for fishing, it would be all-purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to salute the Rhodes family for making donations for that to be coming into existence. The Molinari firm did the work at a discounted rate for us also. The concrete work is now done.
Okay.
The platform has a lip on it, and I believe we are now looking at railings.
Okay.
In this case, there'll be 2 areas on the side facing the lake that will have special cutouts so that a person in a wheelchair can come right up, and then the room for the bottom of the wheelchair, and also reduced height so that they can go out if they want to fish or just enjoy the view.
It is a great view.
Right, it puts them right at the water's edge. We were able to do this on a reasonable budget. It took a little while. We wanted to get it done earlier. Someone mentioned the other day that it might be ready before the fishing tournament, which is great because for the children, I've looked at pictures of earlier tournaments where the children doing the fishing were standing down by the rocks. And I thought to myself, now if
rocks and
if you have a child in a wheelchair that wanted to take part in the fishing tournament, he couldn't really.
He couldn't really, because at that point,
far back from the water's edge.
Good, 6 feet or more.
Yes,
if not more. Yeah.
So now with the platform, there can be more participation.
Excellent. And just to be clear, that's like a very smooth raised platform. We'll call it poured concrete, I believe.
Yes.
And it stops about a foot from the edge of the water.
Or
thereabouts. And you can roll right up to it.
And it's paved right up to it. I mean, they've got to replace grass and probably do finish off pavement and all because they were getting this done in the wintertime. So and when it warms up outside a little bit, there will be some finishing work, but it's there now. And we really have made headway on that. Very proud of that.
Yeah. And that was really the I believe the donation of one family, the Rhodes family,
It would not have been possible without their generosity of Marcia and Harold Rhodes.
Right.
And we do thank them very much for that.
I believe most of the work you do, the funds you do, is through donations, is that right?
It is.
Right.
And the Rhodes family has been very, very supportive in a number of projects lately.
Excellent.
We just finished a hearing loop for T-coil use at the Senior Center reception desk. This is brand new and was supported by the Rhodes family. We worked with the town clerk's office with Amy Nevis and added one accessible voting booth in each precinct plus one by the town clerk's office. This is a lower heights booth where a person in a wheelchair, it's very easy for them if they want to participate in the voting process
the voting, which is their right.
Rather than filing a absentee ballot. They can come to the voting booth, whether they want to use the automark machine or they can just manually vote by themselves. So we've added one of those booths for those places there too.
The absentee ballot is officially counted, but it's not quite the same as joining the madness over at the precinct booths.
That's right.
Especially,
It is fun to participate. And we also, even some of the ramps at the voting precincts, we've encouraged some improvements on those. To make sure every precinct is and always stays accessible. And I think that's one of the things where we would talk about being eyes and ears, whether it's around town or on the trail. All they have to do is let us know about a concern. Anyone can send an email, mnicholson@usa.com, or go to the Commission's page on the Town of Milford website. We have contact points there.
Excellent.
And we will listen to everything, whether it's bushes that are blocking the sidewalk, breaks in the sidewalk, things that are interfering with mobility around town. Even the other day there was a concern about a sign. Actually, it was a sign warning about the trail ahead, a diamond sign. It was on the sidewalk, but it was low enough to where we had had 2 separate reports of people walking into it.
Oh,
the sign has since been elevated so that it's now
news.
Out of the way. So
that's excellent news.
We look into everything that we hear about.
Excellent. We also had mentioned a new rest area over by the Route 109 trailhead near CVS.
Yes, and again, with the support of the Rhodes family and with the property owners who are willing to give us a revocable license to use that property.
Excellent.
It will be supported, with the Rhodes donations. It will consist of probably at least one round dining table with chairs, concrete type construction, with openings for a wheelchair, and probably a few other accessible amenities, trash can, things like that, what have you. But it will be in the area near where we showed the one trail sign by CVS.
Right.
So you'll be able to see it from the highway. It's easy to get to. Right now we're at the survey stage on that. We've already had meetings with the property owners and have preliminary contracts set up on that. We're just waiting to get the survey part done, and then we'll have another civil engineer come in to lay out how we want to have it done.
Sure. And That, just to give it some context, that's over by the trailhead here at
Right,
109.
yes, right in this area here, where
Where
this section is already completed.
Right.
Between
And-
Holliston and 109.
Yep.
And it'll be right at the CVS at 109, across the street
There's
from Franley's.
There's a little jug handle area there where you go down, go around the corner, and then down
Right.
straight down the
So
trail.
like Reno knew we were going to want to
Yeah.
put something in there someday, so he said, I'm going to make room for you.
Little room for you going around the corner.
That's right.
Wow. Mike, thank you very much for coming out here today. I believe that's all I had. Thank you very much. Excellent. Well, thanks for tuning in today. That's the Trail on Accessibility. If you have any questions about accessible or anything in the town related to accessibility, please contact the Commission on Disability. And if you have any ideas for a trail talk or any stories you want to share, please get in contact with us over at the Milford TV station. And if there's anything you want to know about the trail, go online, go to our website at www.milfordtrail.org, or go to our Facebook page, Friends of the Upper Charles Trail. Thanks.